Yeah, you change it. You change that setting.
Change that setting. Change it.
He's gonna check it, change it.
He's gonna change it. Yeah.
Change it.
Yeah. You know that's going in the intro. Oh, for the love. If people didn't like the burp, they're going to hate that.
Say what they think about the sound of something actually coming out.
Sorry, just clearing my Mountain Dew hole.
Oh, gross.
This is a good place to start it.
Mountain Dew hole.
Hello, everyone. This is episode 6 of From the Middle. We are middle-class guys living in the middle of America in the middle chapters of our lives with a point of view somewhere in the middle. I'm Dillon Hubble.
I'm Corey Hubble.
I'm Kendall.
Hey. It's just who I am, you know?
What's going on, guys? So thank you so much for tuning into this episode 6. We're very excited to be back together again, recording again, and find out what's new in all of our lives. I got nothing, so I'm not going to start or end. So it's up to you guys.
I kicked off last episode with a fact check. This is not a fact check, but a really funny little addition to episode 5. So I mentioned that I got to go to the IndyCar race, blah, blah, blah. And I got to meet Indy 500 winner Simon Pagenaud. While they were introducing the racers before the race, one of the little fun facts on the screen was he has a famous dog. So I think his dog's name is Norman Pagenaud. I'm gonna make sure that that's right.
It's a terrible name for a dog.
So hold on. So yeah, Norman Pagenaud is his dog, I think. Yeah. And in the description, in the bio for Norman's page, it says fur baby.
Great.
I lost just the tiniest bit of respect for Simon after I saw that, but that was funny.
Now, Simon, if you'd like to come defend your bio,
Yeah.
you're welcome to come on the show as a guest.
No, he stopped listening to us now.
Yeah, you lost him at knocking his bio.
Hey, Norman Pagenaud, the dog, has more followers than we do. So if you would like to follow us on social media, we are at From the Mid Pod on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, all of the things.
Yeah, we're everywhere. Just go there and like and comment and share and donate and offer some kind of sacrifice to us in whatever form you see fit. And we appreciate it.
Got weird. Got weird.
I was thinking treasure, but, whatever.
I thought you said sacrifice.
He said, yeah.
Kendall, what's up with you, man?
Wow. Boy. All right, so I'm spending over the course of the summer here for a few weeks. In June, I am going to be preaching instead of or in addition to the worship leading responsibility. So I'm spending a lot of time doing that prep work, sermon prep work.
How do you
taking up a lot of my.
How do you prep for that? Do you have sort of a topic in mind, or do you just like whatever feels right at the time? Or
no, so I mean that goes a few different ways. For me personally, often when I preach, it is in a moment where we're kind of like as a church in between series, that kind of thing. In which case, like the pastor just kind of tells me do whatever you want. And so what I like to do in those circumstances normally is do expository preaching, which basically is different from topical preaching. Topical preaching, you say like, I want to talk about prayer, and I'm going to preach a sermon about prayer and teach. The expository style is more along the lines of, I'm going to take a chunk of scripture and I'm just going to like preach whatever that chunk of scripture is teaching, right? So that's kind of more my speed, what I like to do. And so what I've done like over the years of me sort of like preaching these popcorn sermons here and there is I've taken like this really small little 1, 2, 3 page books of the Bible and just had like a little sermon that was like, this is a sermon from the book of Philemon. And I've kind of run out of those. And so, but we're actually kind of in a series right now over the summer. We're going through Psalms. So I picked some Psalms that way. Psalms that I think going into choosing those Psalms were ones that I think that sort of our church, our congregation in particular, would benefit from kind of diving into those Psalms. And so I kind of prayed about it, thought about that in that light, saying, what is it I think that this group of people and myself needs to hear? And so I chose the Psalms that way, and I'm going to sort of exposit those Psalms.
Do you like being up on the platform? I mean, you've said before that you're kind of introverted by nature. So like, was that sort of a hurdle for you to get over in our lead pastor's absence when he's like, hey man, will you fill in? And you're also the worship leader. So there's that awkwardness of like, I don't want to be up there the whole time leading the songs and preaching and right.
Yes. No. So oddly enough, and I think that you would find that a lot of public speakers are introverts. And there's this weird circumstance that happens when you're on stage in front of a bunch of people, and that you don't necessarily feel the more people there are in the room, the less intimate each relationship feels. Does that make sense? So if I'm talking like talking about the same deep stuff, preaching the same sermon, and it's in like a small group atmosphere, and there's like 5 people in the room, that intimidates me much more than being in front of 100 people.
I can relate to that as it relates to singing. So, kind of coming up in a show choir, traveling competitive show choir sort of thing, to sing in front of 4 members of my family, super hard. To sing in an auditorium of 2,000 people at a show choir competition, no big deal. Totally fine with that.
Yeah, and so it's very much that way. It's actually the introvert in me is actually helped by the fact that there's more people and it's a different format. It's sort of interpersonal communication. Like I'm weird and awkward, and I know that I am. I don't like it. Like I tend to. What's very helpful for me is when there are people who are very extroverted who come to me and start asking me questions, and then like that kind of opens me up to the point where I can kind of reciprocate those questions back to them and that kind of thing. And I say that sort of from a church leadership standpoint, where it's like I very much want to get to know as many people as I can and get to that level. It's just like for me personally, like I just have this weird apprehension that that is a hurdle for me. So anybody out there who's listening, like if I have ever come up to you and as the person who has made you feel welcome, like and I was weird and awkward, like it's because I'm a weird and awkward
You're
person.
welcome.
And it was like legitimately an act of discipline on my part to like even approach you because you intimidated me. Like that's maybe a little bit too deep of a dive as to who I am. But no, and then as far as like FaceTime in front of the congregation, like worship leading, and then turn around, hey, it's me again. I'm gonna preach now.
Right.
Put on a different shirt for you.
I was say you like spin on the stage and pull your like button up off, and you've got a different button up underneath.
To me, that's just kind of weird. So it's like it's not even like a. So Corey, you are going to be leading worship for us a couple of those times.
Yep. Happy to.
And thank you. And even in those times, like I'm still going to be like playing music. I'm still going to be playing guitar, and helping the songs along that way. But like I'm going to be in the back. I'm not going to have a microphone in front of me, just because, man, I think that's not only weird to sort of have the same face that you're looking at the whole time, but also what I think that. When I think of a worship gathering, and we use that term specifically, worship gathering instead of service. I'm not going to go into why we use the gathering instead of service, but The concept there being that we have different people of different talents, different gifts that have been brought together, and we're sort of helping each other through this worship experience on a Sunday morning and that kind of thing. I feel like it's better to have more people and more faces involved, filling different roles, than it is having just one face up there,
Absolutely.
Doing the whole thing. So, which is also why talking in between songs and leading prayers and that kind of thing is something that I have stopped doing myself, and I instead developed a team of people to do that instead. So that just gives another person who would be helping and leading and that kind of thing. So.
No, I'm excited. You've always done a great job. When I've heard your last message, you talked about the concept of lamenting in Scripture, and so a lot of, and if you're not part of the church world, that's totally cool. We still love you, and we want you to listen to our silly podcast. But in the church world, capital C church world, there's a lot of you got to be happy. You got to be blessed and highly favored. And, if you just speak it and it'll, and not to get too theological, but there's this sort of avoidance of the reality that sometimes people are struggling and going through real stuff. And you did a phenomenal message on that. And I was deeply touched by it. It was super, super good, and just something that doesn't get talked about a lot, but I think needs to. A huge portion of the Bible is people that were going through some tough stuff, and the concept of lamenting is sort of a lost art.
It lost art, and I think it's important for people to hear, even if you're not sort of totally into the fact that we're talking about quote unquote church stuff right now. I still think that a good message to hit your ears right now would be that it's not all sunshine and rainbows for anybody.
No.
And especially for the believers out there, who have been told or who have felt this guilt for the times that you don't feel utter joy in your heart all the time. And that
you must
kind of
not
thing.
have enough faith.
Exactly. that does not mean that your faith is less real. It doesn't mean that there's some. It just there are times when life is going to suck that is reality. Scripture teaches us about that. Scripture teaches us how to take those things and lament them properly, and those kinds of things. So it's not something that you have to push down. You don't have to put on a happy face just because you're a Christian. That's not good. It's not real.
Or just because you're a human. I mean,
right.
Yeah, anybody, anywhere.
Well, that's running rampant in social media right now, right? Where we have to pretend like our lives are this, rainbow of amazing experiences, and our family is perfect and beautiful and put together. And it's sort of that I have to make my entire year look like the Easter picture in front of where all my kids are done up. And hey, life is hard, man, and people go through stuff. We had a friend this week share some pretty real and authentic stuff on Facebook, and it was the most comments and feedback they had ever gotten. They just said, I'm really struggling with stress and anxiety and depression. And people in the droves just came out of the woodwork and said, hey, I struggle with that too. I struggle with that. It's why do we have to wait for one person to be brave enough to say I'm struggling, to be real and authentic with each other? So I think, I don't want to go off on too much of that, but it's just comforting to know sometimes that when life is less than rainbows and roses and unicorns, that there are people that got your back, and regardless of your belief system, that life can get hard, and it's helpful to have people that acknowledge it. So,
word.
Yeah, I think the social media aspect of that is difficult because you have people who have different rules for how to use it, and you have people who have adopted it at different times, and you have different age groups using it, and you have different personalities and whole ideological belief systems built, their worldview and how they view things. You have all of this factored into how people are using it. And sure, you don't want somebody who's constantly, bashing their spouse or something or their kids on social media. But I think at the end of the day, if you're being authentic, if it's not just complaining, but if you're being authentic and trying to open up, that's what you can appreciate.
Yeah.
Not that people can't complain, but I think we all know the difference between somebody who is just complaining to complain, and people who are expressing
Sure.
what life has thrown at them. So yeah, you've just got this whole weird big thing with social media that we're all just kind of figuring it out, and it's evolving all at the same time.
It's brand new. I mean, and if you look at like society, this is a new concept. Like this, how I'm going to use it in air quotes, how close we all are, because we're not. We're fooling ourselves into thinking we're closer than we are. But nothing has been this accessible or out there. So you can scroll through your feed on any social media platform and just see amazing, funny, beautiful, encouraging things. And then somebody else is on wanting to show you how bad things are in the world. And you see horrific images of things going on in parts of the world. And your mind was in this funny, happy place. And then you see that. And so what actually happens, I believe, I don't have any science to back this up, but that you're actually being desensitized to all of it. Because you scroll through and see positive, you scroll through and see your new favorite comedian, then you scroll through and see some tragedy and something, and you're just like, on to the next one. It just becomes this amalgam of sort of just like, meh, where you were entertained for 30 minutes sitting down somewhere while looking at your feed. It's interesting. Technology.
Yeah. Interesting stuff.
Okay. We were going to talk tech, I think, today. Just like...
Yeah. Did you have any updates? If we...
Oh, no. I covered my fur baby thing.
Okay. Well, I think part of earlier in one of the episodes, I mentioned kind of my tech background, and we all like it and use it all daily. I've dabbled professionally, obviously Kendall, being into music and part of what you do, you're using it professionally as well. I just think it's a fun topic because you've got trends that you can discuss in technology and what's new and what's changing and what's the next thing. But I also think it's fun to just like some of the weird, quirky ways that we use some of the stuff that we have. And it certainly can all be a distraction. And 100% I'm guilty of being distracted by, my phone or my tablet or whatever. I think it's really easy to do that. So we all have to sort of responsibly manage, how we use it and view the world through it. But part of why I get really excited about technology is obviously we all do, some of the ways that you're going to use it. I just imagined, earlier in my daughter's life, being able to pull up something like Google Maps and drop myself, sort of drop the little person icon onto a street in Rome and like, here's the Colosseum, and then mirror that up onto my television and to get to show her places in the world. And that's not even factoring in things like VR, which, if you're not familiar, it's virtual reality. You see these advertisements for this big like headset that you put on your head, covering your eyes. And have either of you done any VR at all?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. Have you played with it?
Never.
I think I haven't in a while, so my experience is very outdated compared to what's happening now. I've played a little bit with the PlayStation VR headset. A friend of mine threw me into a Battlefront, Star Wars Battlefront, where you're in an X-Wing, like flying on an asteroid mission. I actually got a little motion sick from that because you're flying all over. But one of the most interesting experiences I had, somebody dropped me into a couple scenarios. One of them was some shopping plaza, retail plaza somewhere in China. And the moment where it felt really real, you're sort of looking at whatever's dropped into the screen on this headset in front of you. And there's auditory elements. I mean, you can tie in headphones and hear things around you. But I was sort of looking around this shopping plaza through the VR headset. And at one point, I saw like a restaurant or something. And for just a split second, my brain went, let's go there, before I could realize that it wasn't really there. And so it was just that split second of it felt like I'm there. And you're never going to be able to simulate things like, well, not never, but as of now, you can't simulate things like temperature, smell, things like that. But the visual part of being stimulated is a huge element. And so just being able to see it like I could walk to it was really, really interesting. And then they dropped me into some sort of the American Mountain West type area where there's bison walking by you. And it just felt like I was literally in this plains area with bison that are massive stepping by me. It's just really cool. I don't know where VR is going to go. There's been some technology that's come and gone that's been less interesting, in my opinion. 3D came and went pretty quick. If you were working in the industry at all, you knew it would, or you felt it would, but it was the new thing to sell. And so people bought it for a while. Curved screen TVs, stuff like that have come and gone.
To the VR point, it's super interesting as an artist because it's a whole new medium for artists to play in. So you go from 2D animation, think traditional Disney films where artists are drawing individual drawings, different frames per second, whatever. Then you move into Pixar and CGI, which is manipulating a 3D figure in space with the same concept, right? You still got frames. And now there's this whole other medium where artists can, and I got to do this at Easton Town Center with a Oculus Rift headset. But you're manipulating a ball of clay in virtual space. So you're adding to the ball of clay or sculpting from the ball of clay to sculpt. You can move around it. And so take that to the next level. So digital painters are doing paintings in 3D space. So if you paint a landscape, background, middle ground, foreground, and let's say you paint buildings in the middle ground, you can now move up to those buildings, spin them around 180 degrees, paint the back of them with different textures and different things. So people are sort of thinking where, like, imagine being able to walk through a Van Gogh painting, right? You can walk through Starry Night and go see it from different angles. If you advance that to the idea of movie making, you can watch an entire feature-length film in one angle.
Yeah.
And then if you want to go see the car chase from the street level, you can go back, put yourself in the street level. Okay, now you want to watch that same car chase from the third story of the cafe.
Right.
So you can actually think about it like that and what's being created. There's one of the artists I follow on Instagram is Goru Fujita. He's kind of one of the main guys at the forefront of experimenting with some of the technology. And he's painting and animating in 3D space wearing virtual reality goggles. And it's crazy the stuff that where it can go. It's super fascinating.
Yeah, and there's different industries too, like how do tablets and computers keep advancing, but then how does audio and home theater and home stereo keep advancing, and then virtual reality and console gaming, PC gaming. You've got all these more industries I'm not thinking of, and not to mention the whole like sort of Internet of Things, like that's just any product that's built that can connect to the internet. From the little smart vacuums that run around your house to the TV screen in a Samsung refrigerator to smart locks and cameras. And, there's most of that is not piquing my interest enough, especially the smart home products that I've invested. But some of the ideas behind lighting and not only changing the color, the warmth, or how cool or warm it is, but different lighting for different moods and times of day. Smart thermostats where it's a hot day and you didn't know, so you turn on the AC from work, and by the time you get home, it's already cool. And there's just some really incredible stuff that I think one of the first things that kind of caught my attention was, there's probably a slew of them now, but the cameras at your front door that also had a microphone, like a speakerphone, to the person at your front door. So it alerts you on your phone. You can talk into your phone and hear it at the front door where the lock is. So you can say, hey, go ahead and leave the box at the front door, or go ahead and take it to the side door and leave it there to the delivery person at your front door.
Or I just called the police.
Or I just called the police. Get away from my azaleas.
Right.
So I can't believe I thought of a flower name that quickly.
I'm actually impressed.
I thought that was a rapper.
Yeah, it's also that. But it's a lot of fun. Like, I enjoy, we've discussed how I'm into home theater, which is mostly then ends up being the TV and the speakers and that what that creates. And I know last episode we were talking a little bit about the Godzilla films, and I was just thinking, for somebody who's never really watched any, if it's good action and it sounds good, that's something I want to throw on my system at home and enjoy it.
Yeah.
Because not only subject matter wise am I now interested enough to try it, but that's how I enjoy that the most. And so, and that space is its own thing with internet connectivity and the drive to make things smaller but sound better. And
it's a desire for immersion. I don't
Exactly.
Can I say the high end audio company you used to work for?
yeah, I used to work for it. Go ahead.
Yeah, so Dillon used to work for Bose, and one of the things that you would do, they would do this demo where the picture was really small and poor, but the audio was amazing. And then they flipped it where the picture was amazing and the audio was from one speaker, and then they put the both together. And it's like what we're really longing for is immersion. The more that I can feel like I am in this world, like Godzilla is destroying that building that I'm standing next to. I'm in a living painting. All of that stuff that we're describing, and we're seeing it a lot in video games now, where it's feeling increasingly immersive. And you literally, if you didn't grow up on video games, it's harder to understand. But you're diving into this space, and the it reminds me of Sebastian Maniscalco. Was we've talked about him on almost every episode,
Probably.
He was presenting the award for in the video game industry for storytelling, and they were kind of making fun of it in their episode of their podcast. But if you think about it, storytelling in video games has even increased to the level that it's really solid storytelling, and you are deciding where this character goes, making fundamental decisions, being rewarded or punished based on that decision making, and it circles back. So if you make mean or evil decisions in the game, that will circle back and affect you later. Or if you are generous and charismatic throughout the game, that it plays out differently in the core. I mean, it's amazing stuff and the more and more immersive that it feels, it's very magnetic, and it does draw you into a whole new level. I can't imagine where things are going to be in 10 years.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with the idea of immersion, and it's specifically with the theater example. Great, an 80-inch TV with the crappy TV speakers is not immersive, and a 13-inch TV with the best surround sound of the world is also not immersive. And so pairing those together and then bringing that full circle back to the video game topic, you're now seeing Hollywood-level actors and music composers, and music teams working on video game scores.
Yeah,
I mean, this is absolutely Hollywood level music that's being created for games now, because it just adds to that experience. And so that's why you'll see, if anyone not into gaming, that's why video game or gaming headsets are partially why those are such a big deal, because they'll put a lot of speakers in those little headphones. Also, it's for the communication aspect, but they'll put a lot of speakers in there, and somebody can hook that up to their console or PC or whatever of choice and really feel that immersive element of all the dialogue and the audio. They don't miss anything off of some cheap, computer speakers or something like that. So it's really interesting because I think that whole idea of how gaming has evolved. I mean, I think last episode I referenced the game Rampage, and how basic that game was, literally up and down and a button to smash buildings and cars and stuff like that, and how immersive games are. I remember several years ago I bought insert whatever sports title, baseball game, and I couldn't even figure out the button combinations to literally even play the game. Like I never ended up playing it.
Yeah.
I could have looked it up online and tried to figure out the buttons or whatever, but it was so complex I couldn't figure it out. And I'm not foreign to gaming. Like I grew up playing all kinds of games, like I think all of us did. But yeah, it's just amazing. Sometimes unnecessary complexity, but the complexity with which this is all built now.
Yeah, I feel like if you can make an experience more complex without making the usability more complex, that's the key. That's the ticket. Which is why I think like all of the AV stuff and the spending more money for more quality AV talent and that kind of thing is so big for the gaming world, because there's a lot of gamers, myself included, and as you just mentioned, where it's like if a game is just too complicated to play, it keeps you from playing it.
Yeah. Yeah, you want as few barriers to entry for anything that you can. And so
I think there's a cap there as far as like how how intricate the gaming world can get as far as like virtual reality and how much you have to do and what you have to know and remember and how to control different things. I think there's probably a cap there, as far as what the video game industry can do and expect people to actually do it. But if they can make the experience more intricate without making the controlling more intricate.
Yeah.
That reminds me. So I thought a fun topic in the future would be, because we're all 30s ish. I thought it would be a really fun topic to say what music or article of clothing or things that the kids were wearing or things that the kids were saying. What was the first sort of thing that you witnessed that you realized, I'm getting out of touch. I'm getting older. And for me, to the gaming point and usability, it was Fortnite. I mean, every kid on the planet right now seems to be playing Fortnite. And like Dillon said, I've gamed my whole life, but I'm good at first-person shooters. But Fortnite, I could not figure out because you got to shoot and build a fortress at the same time. Mm-hmm. And I watched some friends' kids playing, and they, with such ease, they build a fortress while they're defending themselves in Fortnite. Mm-hmm. And the combination of those two things, I could not. So that for me, in the whole world of gaming, that was the first game where I went, I'm starting to get out of touch with. And
gaming. The awareness of like the awareness of where your opponents are in that game to me is also like a hurdle for me. Like, how did you know he was underneath you?
Yeah, because if you're not familiar, the map is getting increasingly smaller, and it's a battle royale, so it's the last man standing. But the map keeps shrinking and shrinking and shrinking, and you got to stay inside of that shrinking center of the target. So it gets to a point where it forces you to face off, and you've got to like build these fortresses while you're defending. And it was just like it's too much. It's too much going on. So what are we playing right now? Like you guys mentioned in like one of our first episodes that you're kind of mobile gamers a little bit, and I'm definitely into gaming. What are we all playing?
Yeah, mobile, not because I don't enjoy console. I've never gotten to PC and Mac gaming very much, but I'm not anti those. I'm always interested in what people are doing, but that's just it's a good hobby if you have a lot of time to spend on it as far as building PCs and Mac gaming and some of that kind of stuff. But mobiles is much more approachable for me. So we talked a little bit about, or I might have, maybe I mentioned, maybe I didn't. So I love history, and not that any game truly represents history, but especially that kind of medieval, the whole medieval era and older, I love. And so one of the games I grew up that probably impacted me the most from a enjoying gaming standpoint. I mean, we had Nintendos and Segas, and my uncle had an Atari that I would play. Shout out Kevin, thanks. But for me, it was Age of Empires on PC.
Okay.
And so I played that so much. It's, last episode, Greg talked about the nostalgia of growing up and watching, on New Year's Eve and Godzilla on New Year's Eve. For me, one of the things I enjoyed most from a gaming standpoint, Age of Empires, if you're not familiar, it's kind of roughly historically based on the medieval era, and you kind of build from having very little, like a town center and a couple villagers, to large fortresses, and you're trying to take out your enemy. So it's partially economic and partially strategy, military based. But one of the things I enjoyed most was my dad played too, and we would build each other maps and campaigns with very detailed sort of, you can't really tell a story in it. It's not a story game, but like as you would venture out from where your base was, you would discover new things and new enemies, and things were hidden in bases that you could acquire. And so we would build each other maps and series of maps to play out stories and tell stories. And you could even set up automated kind of messages. So once you entered this area of the map, a message would pop up with a little bit more information. And so we spent countless hours playing that. So I say all of that to say, I love Age of Empires. The closest thing I found for mobile that I can play with ease with a young child is Dominations. And so if you haven't played it, it's not exactly the same, but it's the closest thing I found. And for that reason, I've been playing several years now on my iPhone. So Dominations is awesome. If I'm gonna hop on a console, I was thinking about it the other day. For somebody who doesn't play very much, I have a big variety of games that I enjoy. Like not a quantity, just very, very different types of games. So Age of Empires is very much strategy, like real-time strategy. If I'm sitting at a console, Star Wars like Battlefront or like a World War II shooter game, both of those are, run and gun, kind of shoot, play, quick matches. I love NCAA football. It's a game which they don't make anymore. I could spend the rest of my life playing. Yeah, I hope as the NCAA is currently considering the idea of paying players. I'm not getting into opinions on that, but if that ends up happening, that's actually happening in real life.
I didn't know that.
I hope that we might get to a place where we can go back to making those games.
Oh yeah, I think the game certainly comes back
if they get into that, and I don't know what math they have to work out I think if they do that, the game collects a portion of the money from the game sale, divvies it up among all the schools, and then the schools divvy it up. But if they can figure that out and those games come back, I would be ecstatic.
Because that was the downfall of those games, right?
The long story short, if you don't know, there used to be college football video games. Somebody sued the NCAA, the actual collegiate group that manages it, because they believe that players should be paid for being represented digitally in these games.
Right.
With that happening, the athletic conferences started going, we don't like this negative press. Game developers, you can't even use our school names or conference logos anymore.
Right. So what was happening was they would have a specific player on the cover of the game, but the digital players that you played with on the field, they never said their names.
Right.
But they had their same stats. They looked like them. They were the same height, the same skin color,
everything.
Everything.
Same number.
So
everything.
You weren't ever saying their name explicitly.
It wasn't. Yeah, exactly. It wasn't, hey, this is the first and last name of the quarterback at the Ohio State University, but everything else was the same. So anyways, there was a lawsuit against the NCAA. The school started backing out of even letting the game developers use their logo, and it all fell apart. There was no more games. So I'm playing a much older version now, but so football, totally different. And then I enjoy some older games like Dynasty Warriors and Romance of the Three Kingdoms and stuff like that. So if I'm going to hop on a console, it's probably NCAA, Star Wars Battlefront, but Dominations is definitely a lot of fun. If you're an Age of Empires player, check it out.
What about you, Kendall? What do you play?
Kind of the same story. It's all mobile these days. As I've mentioned before, when I was a kid, I was a big console gamer.
What did you have growing up?
Atari, into Super Nintendo, into PlayStation for a little while, and then an Xbox. Mm-hmm. So that's how I grew into that. Played a lot of first-person shooters and all of those. On PC for a while, I got into Half-Life.
Yeah.
Which is a first-person shooter that predated Counter-Strike. Half-Life to me was a whole ton of fun. And then if you're familiar with how like Counter-Strike was born out of the Half-Life world, and I don't really know why, but for some reason Counter-Strike then blew up and took off, and now there's to this day professional Counter-Strike players.
Esports, baby.
Yeah. And so but I was holding on to Half-Life, just because as we had talked about before, that the turnover in the video game world is something that has always annoyed me, because it's I get really good at Half-Life and I enjoy playing it, and then Counter-Strike happens, and the expectation is that I throw down the money and learn Counter-Strike and try to get good at that. And for whatever reason, that just constantly hitting the reset button doesn't really appeal to me.
Right.
And there was when I was college age or so, or late high school, I don't remember when it was. There was a group of friends, 4 of us, who got really into playing Halo capture the flag games
Yeah.
at LAN parties.
Yeah.
And
Blood Gulch.
yeah, Blood Gulch was like the quintessential map, and to play that on. And so like we developed our own little team of 4. We had strategy, and we would go up against like other friends, whoever wanted to play against us, but it was always us 4 as a team, and we would employ one of our strategies, and like we had one strategy that like if it went according to plan, we won Blood Gulch Capture the Flag in roughly 45 seconds. And like we practiced, like we were total nerds about it.
Heck
And like and we wanted to do it competitively and get to that level, and we were dreaming. And then because like Halo for like held on for a long time, and it was just Halo. It took a long time for Halo 2 to come out.
Yeah.
And then Halo 2 happened, like right around that same time, and our dreams were smashed. Because it was like, oh man, well, now what are we gonna do? And so I think we just pretty much just continued playing regular Halo with people that we knew in homes with, LAN setups and things like that. But no, okay, so today is all mobile gaming, and I'm kind of all over the map with that. I played Galaxy of Heroes, which is a Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. Played that for a long time, for like a couple of years. I haven't played that in a little while, but I'm going to go back to it. And it's kind of like an RPG battle game.
Yeah, I played that for a minute. It's good.
Is what that is. And so like, man, I got into that, as in like there's all these daily tasks, and you're trying to grow and gain
Power up your
characters.
characters,
Power up your characters and try to get the right characters to team them together and that kind of thing, to battle up against other teams. And so like, man, I was checking off lists every day, going through daily tasks.
A lot of the mobile games are smart about doing that. It's about logging in every day, and if you get a consistent streak of logins every single 24-hour cycle, you unlock huge rewards in the game. So they're really good at keeping you coming back.
Yeah. But one thing that always gets me with those is like, I never go on the other side of the paywall with those.
Right.
And so it's like with Galaxy of Heroes, it got to a point where like I was leveling up my squad, my main 2 squads, efficiently enough that I eventually got to a point where I was waiting on the game to upgrade so that people who weren't paying could become competitive again.
Right.
And so like I got to that point a few times where it's like I've literally done everything I can do.
Yeah.
But all the people who are on the other side of the paywall are so much better than I am.
They make the chasm too wide between those who are paying and those who are not.
Exactly. So then I got fed up with it and just said, okay. But my plan there was like, okay, I'm going to slow down and I'm going to maybe pick it up again. Like after a year, and then that way I have that ladder to climb will take a little longer maybe. But that, and then like I've got like a silly golf game that I've been playing recently.
Which one? Is it the one we used to play?
No, it's not so the one that we used to play, I got
that's like one of the first things we ever did together, even though we weren't together.
Even though we weren't together, we used to play.
What was that called?
Golf Kings or something? Or no, not Golf Kings. Golf Battle?
That doesn't matter.
I don't remember.
It was great.
Either. Golf Rival is the name of the one.
Okay.
That I've been here.
Can I jump in with a question?
Yeah.
So when we think about buying a traditional video game, I have a Nintendo Switch, $60 to get a game most of the time. We have such a low barrier for like what we'll pay for into a mobile game, and I don't understand. People don't want to pay at all, but if they do pay, it's like $4.99.
Well,
you'd blow that in at an arcade as a kid, right?
Sure.
At what point do you ask yourself, this game has given me so much entertainment value? Should I put some money into it to pay the people who develop the game for giving me the enjoyment?
Two things there. First is it's not the same because free is an option, right?
Sure.
And so there is that. So now you have the choice because you don't have to pay now. The second thing is like if you don't pay, then it's ad based. So they're still getting paid because you're playing it because you saw an ad.
Yeah. and I know there's no exact, it's such a unique mark. I can't think of another analogy to pull from, but I just wonder for me, like, I think if I've been playing a game for so many years, I'll wait till there's a good in-game bundle and I've only done it a couple times. I'll wait for a good in-game bundle, pay actual money, almost more as a thank you to the developers who made the game than I need the thing or I need to buy into it, because I definitely do not feel the urge to pay for in-game things.
See, and what's funny, like for me, I've always kind of viewed the people who pay for the upgrades as like the sellouts. It's like you're only good because you put money into it.
I mean, I think it's a legitimate discussion, but like I'm paying as a thank you, not for a competitive edge, and that's so rare that it's not even like I'm a frequent. Some people literally have put hundreds and thousands of dollars into a game.
Why not just mail them a check then?
Yeah,
just say thank
maybe
you.
Maybe I'll do that next time.
I had a discussion with some guys once, and it was like very reluctantly admissions of how much you've put into a mobile game, because most people are playing for free. They'll get as high as they can for free, but then it was like one guy was like, yeah, like $10, and we're like, whoa, $10, $50. Oh my gosh, bro, you spent $300. Whoa. and like it was just like
what,
through gritted teeth and like ashamed, like I can't. But like you said, I mean, if you buy,
you have no idea how much coins I got for $300.
Right, and I think it was Mobile Strike, the mobile game Mobile Strike.
Okay.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I remember when Pokemon Go first came out, there were celebrity. I mean, that was a pretty big phenomenon for at least months.
Oh, man.
At least months. I remember somebody saying...
For one of us in this room, it's still a thing. Oh, both of you?
Oh, yeah.
Never mind.
Still playing.
Anyway,
since
I'm
day
the
one.
weirdo. I'm the weirdo who's not 30.
So there was at least one celebrity that I knew of that spent like $1,000. Like they shared, like I've already spent $1,000 on the in-game shop to like get as many things as I can. And I just,
good night.
Yeah, it was somebody who $1,000 to them is like us throwing down on the McDonald's dollar menu, right? Like I got 2 hot pies at McDonald's or whatever. But still, it was like, I think it was John Mayer, actually. It might have been who it was. Okay. But I just, I mean, people have very different levels of what they'll pay into that. And there's a reasonable degree. I've paid $60 for games that I've spent less than 2 hours playing.
Yeah.
Like, I know that's happened. So if I put $20 into a mobile game at some point, that's probably not a huge deal. But you're right. I mean, I get your point that the game is still free and there are still ads. Although I don't recall Dominations having ads. You can choose to go into an area and watch videos if you want, but there's no actual ads in the game.
Yeah.
There's no pop-ups or anything like
I
that.
often will do that in different games.
Some of them, if you watch the
videos
thing,
and here's your perk, like I'll do that.
Yeah, because you literally start the ad and set your phone down and do something else for 30 seconds.
Wipe.
Yeah.
Yep, we went there.
Yeah, wipe your kitchen.
Truth.
You wipe your kitchen counter.
Hey, we're just being real.
How many people listening to this podcast right now?
Yeah, are doing that thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
let us know.
So the Electronic Entertainment Expo is going on right now, commonly known as E3, or is just now over. And they did a first look trailer of the Nintendo Switch game, the sequel of Zelda Breath of the Wild. I'm playing the first one right now. I have a tendency to exaggerate, so I'll tamper my recommendation. It's one of the top 3 games I've played in the last 10 or 15 years, Zelda Breath of the Wild. So much fun. Huge sandbox game. When I first started playing, I Googled like a high level guide to see how I was supposed to go through the game. And I found a great article that says the game is designed to let you play it however you want. So if you want to jump in and go right to the main bad guy and beat the game, you can kind of do that. But if you just want to explore, the game sort of subtly nudges you in directions, but there's no hard linear storyline. So you play exactly how you want to play. If you want to play very relaxed and sort of explore and hunt and fish, you can do that. If you want to just just grind and go right to the bad guy, you can do that too. I made the mistake of buying too many of those types of games at the same time. Big, open concept sandbox games. I got the new Spider-Man for PlayStation 4. I got Red Dead Redemption 2. And then I got a Switch and then got Breath of the Wild. So I have too many big games going on at once and actually need like some easy, quick, sit down and play for 30 minutes types games like the new Mortal Kombat, which we kind of grew up on as kids of the 90s, right? That looks kind of fun, but definitely can't play that with kids in the room. But I actually got too many big concept sandboxy games at the same time, and it was like, So Breath of the Wild is super fun, and when I realized with the Switch that I think I was on a work trip, and I was on an airplane, and a guy was playing his Switch on the tray in front of him, and I'm like, the console is the thing, and you take that everywhere with you. Like, you've never been able to do that before. So that was super appealing to me. So that's kind of what I'm playing right now. And then, of course, Pokemon Go. I've got some funny Pokemon Go stories of sharing with colleagues a little bit older than me about what the game was. And they're like, so wait, there's these digital creatures. And I'm like, yeah. So this is a quick funny story that I know somebody listening will appreciate. So I was in Miami for a work trip, and there's a certain Pokemon specific to a certain latitude line. You can't get it anywhere else but below this latitude line, and Miami is one of the places you can get it. And so I've been there for 4 days with my colleagues, and I have yet to see one. And I'm actually leaving there slightly dejected that I've not found this rare Pokemon because I've been in this region and I didn't see one. And so we're doing our last celebratory. The meeting went great, and we're doing a last celebratory dinner. And I tell them we're at this mall, and prior to that, we were sort of an industrial area, so there wasn't a lot of Pokemon around.
Right.
So we go to this mall, highly populated, tons of stores and restaurants, and I say, if I see one, I'm like going to jump out of this booth and go get it, right? So my colleague was... We're in a cheesecake factory, and my colleague is on the outer...
Wait, you went to South Florida?
Yeah.
You went to Cheesecake Factory?
It was close. We were tired for the day. That we went to lots of other cool places, but that was our last.
All right, pass.
Anyway, so she's on the outside of the booth, and I just glance at my phone and I go, "There's one here." She hit the floor. I'm not exaggerating. She hit the deck, thinking I was going to just plow her like Terry Tate, office linebacker, and just plow her. And then I go, "Oh no, it's fine. I can grab it from here." So I got it, and I stood up and gave like an award show acceptance speech. I'd just like to thank all the people that made this.
Yeah,
I was so happy.
Are those time sensitive? Like, if you see one, do you have to get it like right now?
They do spawn for a certain period of time, but it's like 15 minutes. It's not like 30 seconds. But.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just looking through the most recent E3, some of the games that are launching, because I know the one I heard about Keanu Reeves is they've used his likeness in a game that he's working on. That's apparently a huge deal. Some kind of story-driven drama with him. I don't even know what it is.
Is it tied to the movies? The John Wick movies?
I don't know.
Okay.
So you mentioned one of them. I guess Age of Empires is getting an Age of Empires 2 definitive. I can't say that word. A new edition for PC and Xbox, so I won't be able to participate as of now. There's going to be a bunch that I just don't know because I don't play enough games. But there's a lot. I mean, I'm seeing a lot of like Marvel titles, Star Wars titles. Yeah. A lot of cool stuff. Somebody that knows games will know way better. Final Fantasy and Fire Emblem are listed on here. Wolfenstein, Animal Crossing. I know a lot of people play those. Elder Scrolls.
Oh, Sword and Shield is coming out.
Yeah, Pokemon Sword and Shield is going to be massive. The biggest thing there is finally a Pokemon game that's not just on a handheld mobile console, but with the Switch, you can play it mobile or dock it to your TV and play on your TV. Mm-hmm. So an actual new title that's mobile or television will be big. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure... if you're a fan listening and there's games you're excited about, highlight them. Like go on our social media and like tell us what you're excited about. Links and videos. We'll check them out because we might get some more time to go play some of this stuff, and we like to hear what people are playing. So just because we're all mobile doesn't mean we don't want to hear what you guys are talking about.
What did you sort of like Kendall talked a little bit about Dillon. What for you was sort of your first memory of a game and a system, and like, you know, really getting hooked? And
Yeah, I know I mostly covered that, but yeah, it's still Age of Empires, but because we had Game Boys, Nintendos, and Sega, and a lot of that stuff, distinctly Age of Empires is one I remember the most. Some football games, Sonic games.
do you remember when we got a 64? And do you remember when the 64 came out and we started playing Mario 64? And you start in the courtyard of the castle.
Yeah,
And you could look 360 degrees and climb the trees. And I'm like, gaming will never get better than this.
it was, in hindsight, it was so blocky, but at the time it was incredible.
Oh, it was like nothing we had seen before.
Pilot Wings on 64.
I was just talking about that this week.
Pilot Wings, GoldenEye was huge. I mean, I know GoldenEye didn't start the whole the shooter genre,
Right.
but that certainly felt like a huge
That
boost.
exploded. And then Perfect Dark.
Yeah, because
Perfect
there was
Dark, yeah.
there was still Wolfenstein and Doom and some of those things predated it, but GoldenEye was massive for the whole shooter genre.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that one got played a lot. We had Game Boys too, so like, you know, I'm sure we played a lot there.
Shout out to all of you who played a ton of GoldenEye like we did.
Yeah,
That
nobody
was a lot of my high school.
playing as Odd Job was almost a cheat because he was so short. You had to pick somebody else.
Yeah.
He could crouch in the crates and no one could see him.
Yep. Have you seen some of those? Speaking of technology in games, the Unreal Engine, the rendering of some of those levels and things. Have you ever watched that, Kendall?
Yes.
It's so, if you're unfamiliar with that, I don't know enough about Unreal Engine. It's essentially software to build landscapes or structures, things like that, but with
textures and levels of
textures and levels of detail that are off the charts. And so you can go back and see some of these video games, old video games or places rendered in the Unreal software engine. And it's just, it almost looks real. So they did one for the GoldenEye, part of the GoldenEye map that the game starts in. And it's just insane, the level of detail. It's kind of a nod to the future and what will be gaming. But it's absolutely incredible. Even if you're not into gaming, you can search Unreal Engine demos on YouTube or something and just pull it up just to see what some of the people are talking about. Because Fortnite is not a good example visually of where gaming is. I think it's very fun and colorful or whatever. It's not bad graphics at all, but Unreal Engine would give you a good idea of where things are headed. Or I'm sure if you watched any of E3, you know, you have a good idea. The Keanu Reeves rendering, his digital form was crazy.
So when we deep dive into these geek topics, it's fun to sort of bring it up a level or two or seven and sort of say, so what's the takeaway from that? And I think for me, it was when a well-known director, it's either Spielberg or George Lucas or somebody very high up, said that they were more interested in the video game medium as a means to tell stories because the commitment people are willing to give it is so much longer and a smaller scale, like TV as opposed to movies. With movies, you get an hour and a half, 2 hours to tell a story. But there's so much better storytelling being done in TV series and even video games that people are going to commit to that for a lot longer, and you have a much bigger canvas in which to paint some of these stories that you'd like to tell. I think of Red Dead Redemption 2, which, like I said, I've been playing. That's really deep, thoughtful, intentional storytelling going on that you, like I said, you're immersed in this world and it's really fun to be a part of. There's no way they could tell that same story in a 90-minute film.
Right.
It couldn't happen. So when a top-notch director like that says, I'm more interested in that as a medium, video games, than even film, it's saying something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we're now the video game industry, for anyone who feels like it's a niche thing that your sweaty kids do. It's something like a $40-some billion industry.
Right.
So there's actual competitive gaming. If you're unfamiliar, Twitch is a platform where you can basically people can watch you play video games, and you can monetize it. I mean, it's almost like monetizing through YouTube. but it's incredible. Like some people, I just think I'm not knocking any parents who don't understand or don't want to understand, but I think they should understand. If you don't understand why your kids are playing games, they're incredibly immersive. They're really interesting. Also, they can spend too much time doing it. So I'm not defending people who have their priorities out of whack, but I'm just saying it might be something that they if they're really good at, they might actually be monetizing it.
To that point, we had a friend of ours talking to their kids, and they said, "Why do you spend so much time watching other people play video games on these platforms like Twitch, the YouTube of video games? You're not even playing the game. You're just watching people play." And the kid goes, "Dad, when you watch the NFL, what are you doing?"
Watching other people
Watching other people play. Oh, crap.
Yeah.
So to see somebody play something you love at a very, very high level with much more skill than you could ever imagine, it's the same thing. It's the same exact thing for a different generation. And it was like, he was like, oh, I get it now.
Yeah. And by the way, that $43 billion matched the U.S. film industry for revenue.
So there you go. Numbers don't lie.
Yep. Lots of people doing it.
Super interesting. It's fun I don't know that I'll ever stop. Like, I do have my priorities, and there's other things more important in life.
Absolutely.
And I have my own little personal rule that I don't play video games until my wife and kids go to bed. So that's sort of like my time to do a foolish sort of guilty pleasure of gaming. So that was my own little rule when buying the console, that I won't play when you guys are awake and when I could choose quality time with you. So, but then what happens is I'm staying up until 2 and 3 in the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've done a few of those. One time in high school, I think I didn't have to work on a Friday, and I got home and nobody was home. You had already gone to college at that point, so literally no one was in the house. And I'm pretty sure I played from 3:30 until 12:30, just straight through. So what was it, 9 hours of one game? I was playing one game the whole time.
Dynasty Warriors?
It was actually Romance of the Three Kingdoms 8 at the time. I think it was on PlayStation 2. But yeah, I played that for 9 hours straight. So, which it doesn't feel weird. We said that in the first episode. Yeah. Like, you played 12 hours of a thing, and now people binge that much of The Office.
Right.
And it's not weird. So it's not as weird, or there's not as much stigma attached to it as there used to be. However, it's still a long time.
It's still a long time. I had a console that I didn't use much. It was an old Xbox that when we got married, I did not take with me. I just got rid of it because it's something that I would fall into binging way too often, and I know that I would. And so if I were to buy a new console and get new games and that kind of thing with a wife and kids, that would be difficult for me to be a struggle. And so that's just something that I'm just like, you know what? I'm happy to leave that world behind. So me personally, I made the decision that way, and that doesn't mean obviously I think that it's necessarily bad. It's just if anything, it's speaking to myself that I'm the kind of person who would play it way too much, and so I'm just going to say goodbye to that world.
Think about the hours you put into games that are now defunct.
Yeah.
So back to my pie chart thing that I talked about in one episode, where it's like, think about how much time you spent playing a game that didn't give you anything. I mean, obviously the entertainment value and the ability to escape and just sort of do something mindless. But you think of the games that you put hours and hours and hours and hours into that yielded you nothing really outside of
what skills did I gain from...
Yeah.
I mean, one of them, Farmville. Do you guys remember Farmville on Facebook? I put so many hours.
Yeah. And I think conversely, as long as we're not pretending like that's any worse of a thing to do than mindlessly watching television,
totally.
Let's not pretend like TV's giving you anything.
Sure,
I mean,
right.
You can make the argument for documentaries and learning, and you could make the argument on some games for skill developing, hand-eye coordination, and some of them actually test you on strategy and things like that. But let's not pretend like video games are the biggest offender of wasting time.
It does get more demonized, though, because I think people just don't understand how immersive it really is.
Yeah, I
And
think
so, like, why are these guys spending a whole episode talking about gaming? It's way more relevant. We've just established it's as relevant as the film industry. It's way more relevant than you realize, and it's finding new ways to present itself in society.
and we're really at the first couple generations of people who had the option of growing up with it, and now it's not as weird or for kids as much as it used to be. Right. So I don't think it's never going to get smaller in the foreseeable future. We just had parents and grandparents generations who didn't even have that option.
Right.
So that's why we're talking about it. But I'm sure we'll come back and chat more at length about some of those things. But I think I feel good for now. I think if you guys feel good,
I feel good for now.
I asked about you guys second if you caught that, but
I think I'm going to be in a nursing home though, still playing video games.
you're gonna have whatever the 50th version of the Switch is.
I'll make a return to video games when I'm that age.
Yeah, that sounds good. Well, for everyone listening, thanks so much. Check out all of our social media platforms. We're on everything. Search From the Middle. Look for that yellow album art, and check us out. Comment, like, share, do all those things. We certainly appreciate it. And we want to hear from you. You can use the hashtag Thoughts From the Middle if you have questions or things you think we should discuss. And as always, thanks for tuning in. This is the end of episode 6. I'm Dillon Hubble.
I'm Kendall.
And I'm Corey Hubble.
Thanks, guys.
Peace out, Ludi.